When rescuers finally climbed aboard this ship, every sail was still raised. Dinner was still being prepared in the galley. But there was no captain. No crew. No bodies. The lifeboats were gone. The navigation equipment had vanished. And the 11 men who sailed on her were never seen again. More than 100 years later, nobody knows what happened to the crew of the Carroll A. Deering. This is the story of one of America's most famous ghost ships. A boat found completely intact, completely undamaged, and completely empty, on one of the deadliest stretches of coastline in the country. For over a century, investigators, government agencies, and amateur historians have tried to answer one question. Where did the crew go, and why did they leave a fully operational ship behind? The Carroll A. Deering was launched on April 4, 1919, in Bath, Maine, built by the G.G. Deering Company. She was the last of nearly 100 ships the company had ever built, and one of the last major wooden schooners, a type of sailing ship, constructed anywhere in the world before steel and steam took over the seas. She measured 255 feet long, almost 78 meters, with 5 masts and 3 decks. For a cargo ship, she was almost luxurious. Oak ceilings, mahogany trim, a working bathroom and electric lighting. The company's owner, Gardner Deering, named her after his youngest son, Carroll Atwood Deering. In August 1920, she set sail from Virginia bound for Rio de Janeiro, carrying a cargo of coal. Her captain was William H. Merritt, a decorated World War I hero who had once saved his entire crew after a German U-boat sank his previous ship. His son Sewell served as first mate. Only days into the voyage, Captain Merritt fell seriously ill. So the Deering turned back and sailed into a port in Lewis, Delaware, to leave him and his son behind. The Deering Company needed a new captain fast. They found one in Willis B. Wormel, a retired sea captain, 66 years old. And a new first mate was hired too, a man named Charles McClellan. Under Wormel, the Deering finally reached Rio de Janeiro in September 1920 and delivered her cargo without incident. While the ship sat in port, Wormel ran into an old friend, another captain named Goodwin, whose ship happened to be docked nearby. Wormel complained about his crew. He said he trusted almost none of them. The one exception being, he said, was his engineer, a man named Herbert Bates. At the time, it was just an old captain grumbling to a friend. Nobody thought it mattered. On December 2, 1920, the Deering left Rio, loaded with lumber this time, heading home towards Virginia. They stopped in Barbados to take on supplies. And that is where the tension Wormel had mentioned in Rio finally boiled over. First mate McClellan got drunk in town and was arrested. Before that, he had complained to another ship's captain that he could not discipline the crew because Wormel kept overruling him, and that he was doing all the navigation himself because the aging captain's eyesight had gotten so poor. Witnesses in a local cafe overheard him say something darker, that he would, in his words, get the captain before they reached Norfolk. Despite this, Wormel forgave his first mate, bailed him out of jail, and on January 9, 1921, the Deering set sail again with her full crew. For nearly 3 weeks, nothing was heard from her. Then, on January 28, the Deering passed the Cape Lookout lightship off North Carolina and hailed it. The lightship's keeper, Captain Jacobson, later gave a strange account. A tall, thin man with reddish hair and a foreign accent shouted through a megaphone that the ship had lost both anchors in a storm, and asked that the owners be notified. Jacobson tried to pass the message along. But his radio was broken. The warning never reached anyone. He noticed something else, too. The crew seemed to be milling around on the quarterdeck, an area of the ship where ordinary sailors were not normally allowed to stand. And the man shouting orders through the megaphone was definitely not Captain Wormel. The following afternoon, another ship passing nearby spotted the Deering sailing straight toward Diamond Shoals. They saw no one on deck at all. Assuming the crew would course correct before hitting the shallows, they didn't try to make contact. It was the last time anyone claimed to see a living soul aboard the Carroll A. Deering. At dawn on January 31, 1921, a Coast Guard surfman named C.M.P. Brady spotted her through the morning mist. The Deering was hard aground on the outer edge of Diamond Shoals, sails still fully set, a stretch of water so treacherous it has earned the name Graveyard of the Atlantic. The weather was too rough to approach. It took 4 days, and repeated failed attempts by multiple Coast Guard stations and cutters, before anyone could safely board her. On February 4, 1921, rescuers finally climbed aboard. What they found made headlines around the world. The ship's wheel was shattered, the binnacle box was stove in. The rudder had torn loose from its housing, most likely from the grounding itself. Both lifeboats were gone. There was no captain, no first mate, no crew. The only living things left on board were a few very hungry cats. In the galley, food was still being prepared for the next day's meal. Untouched. As if the crew had simply stepped away mid-task and never come back. But other things were missing that should not have been. The ship's log was gone. The navigation instruments were gone. So were the crew's personal belongings. It looked less like a shipwreck, and more like the ship had simply been walked away from. The disappearance shocked the country. 5 separate government departments got involved: Commerce, Treasury, Justice, Navy, and State. Herbert Hoover, then Secretary of Commerce, took a personal interest, especially after noticing that another boat, the freighter Hewitt, had also vanished in roughly the same stretch of ocean around the same time. For a while, one piece of evidence seemed to crack the case wide open. On April 11, 1921, a fisherman turned in a message he claimed to have found in a bottle on a nearby beach. It read that the Deering had been captured by an armed boat, the crew handcuffed and hiding throughout the ship. Captain Wormel's widow identified the handwriting as belonging to the ship's engineer. For a few months, newspapers ran wild with theories: pirates, rum runners taking advantage of prohibition, even communist agents plotting to steal American ships. Then investigators grew suspicious. If a crew member really managed to find paper, a pen, and a bottle, why would he ask for the shipping company to be notified, instead of the police or the Coast Guard? Handwriting experts eventually declared the note a forgery. Under questioning, the fisherman admitted he had written it himself, hoping the attention would help him land a job at the local lighthouse station. With the bottle exposed as a hoax, investigators were left with the theories they started with. A hurricane, though both the Deering and the Hewitt were sailing away from the nearest storm at the time. Piracy, for which no real evidence, and no suspects, were ever found. Rum runners, though experts doubted smugglers would choose such a slow, and mutiny, based on the documented conflict between Wormel and his first mate, and the strange man who was clearly giving orders in the captain's place at Cape Lookout. The federal investigation was formally closed in late 1922. No official explanation was ever given. The Deering was declared too dangerous to leave in place. On March 4, 1921, she was destroyed with dynamite. Her bow later drifted ashore on Ocracoke Island. Timbers from the rest of her washed up on Hatteras Island, and locals used the wood to build homes. Even the wreck couldn't rest. In 1955, a hurricane dragged what was left of her hull 9 miles, about 14 kilometers, further up the coast. Today, her ship's bell and capstan sit in a museum on Hatteras Island. Small, quiet objects, from a ship that once carried 11 men across the Atlantic and brought none of them home. So what do you think really happened? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe to my YouTube channel and we'll see you in the next one.